Welcome back, friends. Today we're going to be making this macrame sword pendant. Hi friends, let's get started. We are going to be working off of a jump ring. Now I'm using a little bit of a larger size, but any regular jump ring will do. I'm also using some synthetic wax polyester cord, and it is in size 0.55 millimeters. Now, I purchased mine on Amazon. I'll leave the link in the description box, but you're going to need two different colors. So to start off our macrame sword, you want to snip off 3 strands of the gray cord at about 40 inches in length. Fold it in half, and then with the loop end, you want to attach that onto our jump ring using a lark's head knot. Place the loop end through your jump ring, and then with the tail ends, you want to thread that through the loop, and then you want to cinch it up taut. Divide your cords into 3 sections. With the first section, we're going to tie 3 vertical lark's head knots. Place the first cord over top of the second cord, forming a loop. Then wrap your tail end behind your second cord and up through that loop. Cinch it up to the top, and then to complete our knot, you want to make a loop again, but this time with your cord underneath your second cord, and then bring your tail end down through the loop. Cinch it up, and that's how you tie a vertical lark's head knot. So we're going to do 2 more of these. Okay, now that you have 3 vertical lark's head knots, we're going to do the same thing to the last set of 2 cords. So for the other side, you want to take your last strand, place it over top of your second to last, and up through the loop. Cinch it up. And then to complete your knot, take your cord underneath the second to last, and then thread it down through the loop. And just like the first side, we're going to tie 2 more vertical lark's head knots for a total of 3. Okay, so now with the 2 center cords, we're going to thread on our bead. The beads I'm using, I purchased, I believe, at Michael's, and it is a size 6/0 or 4 millimeter in the color Smoke Topaz. If I can find the link to the same beads that I'm using, I'll link it in the description box, but we only need 2 beads, so use what you have. Thread your seed bead on both of the strands of cord in the very center and slide it all the way up to the top. And then with the 2 outside cords, we're going to tie a gathering square knot, which is just a regular square knot tied around all the center cords. With your leftmost cord, place it over top of the center cords, and then with the right cord, you want to place it behind the center cords and up through the loop of the left. Adjust everything so that it is sitting well, and then to complete your square knot, you want to repeat the same thing but to the opposite side. So make a loop with your rightmost cord, and then with your leftmost cord, place it behind the centers and up through the loop of the right. Now we're going to create the handle, so grab a scrap piece of your wax synthetic cord, fold it in half to find the center, and then place the center behind all of your gray cords. And what we're going to do is we're going to tie another square knot. This is what I like to call a floating square knot because our cord is not attached to anything else, it's just kind of floating there. And it's also a gathering square knot because it's gathered around all of your previous cords. Now, because it's floating, it is a little bit trickier to tie, especially with such fine cord. So if you want to pin it down onto your board, that's also very helpful. We're going to tie a total of 5 square knots with our brown cord, and the first one is always the trickiest. The rest are not as bad. Now, if you wanted to, you could tie spiral knots instead of regular square knots. I think that would look really cool too, but I'm going to stick with the regular square knots. And of course, you could use a different color. It doesn't have to be brown, but I was kind of going for that medieval kind of leather handle type of look. At any rate, feel free to customize. Okay, once you've tied your 5 square knots, you want to snip off the brown cord so that there's just a tiny little bit of a tail end. And then what we're going to do is we're going to melt it. So very carefully with your lighter, go ahead and melt the tail end, making sure that you don't get your gray cord. All right, so we finished working on the pommel, the grip, and now we're going to work on the guard. And yes, I most definitely had to Google that terminology. All right, grab 2 gray cords on opposite sides, and we're going to tie one more square knot right at the base of our grip, or the brown cords that we had just tied. Next, divide your cords into 3 and then grab another long 40-inch strand of cord, fold it in half, and then place it underneath the first set of 2 cords. And what we're going to do is we're going to tie a reverse lark's head knot. Now it's important that the longest cord is closest to the middle. Next, we're going to attach the 4 short cords right next to our longer one. So fold it in half, and then with the loop end, place it underneath and tie your reverse lark's head knot. Okay, so double check that you have 4 of the shorter ones and 1 of the longer. We're going to repeat the same thing, but on the opposite side. So make sure that your longest cord is in the center or closest to the center, and then your 4 shorter ones on the outside. It's very important that our longest cords are closest to the middle because we're going to need those cords for the blade of our sword later on. So please double, triple check that you've done that correctly. All right, so now we're going to add another bead, but we're going to do it differently than our first one. So locate the 2 center cords, grab a bead and thread it on the first cord. And then with the second cord in the middle, you want to thread that going the opposite direction. So since both of your threads are going in opposite directions, that would cause your bead to go sideways. Make sure it's taut and even on both sides. Now take one of the strands at the very top left, and we're going to use that as our filler cord by placing it across into the middle. And what we're going to do is we're going to tie a row of double half hitch knots. Grab the next cord and place it over top of your filler cord, making a loop, and then thread it through that loop. That's half of your double half hitch. So repeat the same thing, making a loop and threading it through. Then grab the next cord in line and repeat the same thing. So make a loop over top of your filler and thread the tail end through that loop, and repeat one more time. You want your double half hitch knots to be as close to your reverse lark's heads as possible, right until we get into the middle of our guard. And take your time with this part. You want to make sure that you're grabbing each cord in line. You don't want them to cross over. Once you get to the center-ish of the left side of your guard, you want to take your filler cord and you want to angle it towards the bottom of our bead. So your row of double half hitch knots won't be as tight to the row of your reverse lark's head knots. It'll go into a small V point right below our bead. All right, now we reached the middle two cords that our bead is on. You want to just tighten up that bead, make sure that it's right in the center and it's on there firmly. And then with the cord that's on the left, we're going to tie one more double half hitch knot. Okay, now that we completed the left side of our guard, we're going to do the same thing to the right side. I'm going to speed up this section a little bit because it is basically the same thing as the other side. But as a reminder, you want to grab one of the very top right cords, drag it towards the middle as your filler cord. And for the first half of our guard, you want to tie your double half hitch knots really close underneath your reverse lark's head knots. And then we're going to taper it kind of towards underneath our bead. Okay, and finally, once we get to the last strand, it is the strand that our bead is on. You want to go ahead and tie another double half hitch knot. And then with the two filler cords, cross them over. And we're going to tie one more double half hitch knot. It doesn't matter which side you do this knot on. We just want to close in that gap and add a point right underneath our bead. Okay, and that is our guard done. Next, we're going to work on the blade. You will need the 6 middle cords and you want to divide them in half, which is 3 cords on both sides. So grab the leftmost cord, place that across towards the middle, and we're going to tie another row of double half hitch knots. So for the left side, that's just 2 double half hitch knots. And you want to tie them very tightly right below the last row of double half hitch knots below the bead. On the right side, you want to grab the rightmost cord and place that in the center and tie 2 double half hitch knots. And then to close in the gap, what you want to do is take the 2 filler cords and tie them together and another double half-hitch knot. And I do it on this side because this is the side that I'm already going. So on the left-hand side, it will feel like you tied 2 double half-hitch knots, and then on the right-hand side, it will feel like you're tying 3. So that entire V shape, I'm going to count as 1 row. And what we're going to do is we're going to tie another row directly underneath the first one. And you want a total of 17 rows in total. I had originally designed this pattern for Father's Day, but I never got around to creating the tutorial, so I was gonna just skip it. However, I really like this sword pattern, so I decided to upload it now. I find that macrame is quite a feminine type of art, and I really thought that a sword would be a lot more masculine and it would be a fun little gift that you can make into a keychain or something for Father's Day. However, I really quite like it and I would totally wear this as a necklace. And actually, another macrame artist that I talk to regularly on Instagram, if you follow me on Instagram, I share stuff on my stories all the time. And Endless Nudos, she said that it would make excellent earrings, and I quite agree with that as well. They would be so cute as an earring. Alright, once you have a total of 17 rows, and it doesn't have to be 17, you can go a little bit longer or shorter depending on how you want your sword to look like. We can go ahead and unpin it from our board and then trim up all the ends. And you want to leave just a tiny little bit of a tail so that we can melt them with our lighter. Don't forget to trim and melt the tip of our blade as well. And when you melt this one, make sure you press it into a sharp point. And there you have it, a macrame sword. It is really cute as it is. It would make an excellent keychain. And to be quite honest, I would totally wear this as a necklace. I really like it. I'm into the whole metaphysical stuff, so if you add different crystal beads and use it as a protection charm, that would be so cool. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.